Yes. Okay, so I am going to do a baby blanket. Thank you very much, Bella, for all the wonderful, beautiful yarn that she sent me that I was actually in need of more regular yarn. And she sent me a very wonderful love package, comfort package after my honey passed. And I mean, that was just so kind, so kind. Thank you so much, Bella. So I'm going to do a tutorial on how to do a very easy, I guess I would say a beginner crochet baby blanket. So this is light blue, it's 5 ounces, and this is the ultra soft, it's red heart, it's 5 ounces, and it's the ultra soft. Most of I get the Super Saver acrylic red heart skeins, and they're a little bit scratchy. You know, of course I use a lot of that yarn with mixing with my novelty yarn, which covers up any non-softness to that yarn, because obviously fun for a novelty yarns are very soft. And so yeah, so it has a really good softness to it, which is perfect for a baby blanket. Although it's not very thick yarn, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a slightly textured baby blanket, and I'll put a border on it. So I will start with chaining 71. Now if you want a slightly bigger baby blanket, if you chain 81 with the border that you add, it'll give you about 31 to 32 inches, but as far as like size. But this one's going to be slightly smaller, so I'm going to only chain 71, and then the stitch that I will use will be basically slip stitch and half double crochet, and that's a very easy baby blanket to do. And so I'm going to start with I will do the steps, and then I'll come back when I get those steps done and then just show you basically a very easy baby blanket to make. Now normally with baby blankets, if I don't use, like, my favorite texture baby stitch for a baby blanket is either the popcorn stitch or the bobble stitch. But I generally, when I use like I call it fancy stitches or textured stitches, I don't use a ruffle, because it's just my preference. But a ruffle is something extra that you give to the look of a baby blanket. And so I think if I use textured stitches and a ruffle, it kind of drowns them out, if you will. But to each their own. Some people would like both. But I'm going to do this one, and then I will show a very easy ruffle stitch that just a pattern that I made up. Maybe you've seen it somewhere else, but it's something that just came to me years ago, an easy ruffle stitch that I created. And so anyways, so I'm going to get started here. I'm going to start with chaining 71. And so if you don't know the stitch, I will put a link in the description on the videos on how to do the stitch, because my preference is to people to know how to do the stitches before you start a project, and just practice the stitches, do several stitches on a stitch if it's new to you, and that's just my preference. So that way things will just flow, you know, as you're doing, instead of trying to learn a new stitch and learn the pattern at the same time. But that's just me, that's my preference. So I'm going to pause this. So I am using a 5mm crochet hook, and I'm just starting with your basic slip knot, okay, which I don't know, people can decide how they want to do a slip knot. That's up to them. I just basically wrap around and go down through. It's called slip knot, obviously, because you can glide, make it smaller or bigger. That's why it slips. That's why they call it slip knot. Okay, so currently I have 60 chain, and I'm going to do 11 more. Now as far as the tightness, you know, the main thing is you don't want it too loose, obviously, but to be consistent. Now this yarn is a bit raggled, I would say. It's, you know, just because of the way it's coming out of the skein, it's got kinks in it. So what I do when I'm trying to have a consistent I'm actually have to redo this last stitch because it tightened up a little bit there. So that's 60. Is I kind of, what I call choking up on it to kind of hold it in a way that has consistency. See how I just kind of hold it close to where it's on the hook. So 61, 62, 63, 64, kind of choke back up, 65, 66, choke back up, 67, 68, 69, 70, and 71. Now that extra 1 is because you don't start obviously in the chain that the hook is on. So you basically will be actually working 70. So not to be confusing, because you're starting with 71, you're actually doing 70 rows, because this last one that has the loop on it, that doesn't actually count. So I hope that helps. All right, so I have some out to start with. So to start with, I'm going to do a slip stitch and then a half double crochet. So the very first one that the hook and the yarn is not coming out of, and slip stitch into that. Slip stitch, you just go down, wrap around, and bring it through that loop. You're just slipping it into, and then the next stitch is going to be a half double crochet. I'm going to explain it the one time. Again, watch the video tutorial with the stitch to learn how to do the stitch. So half double crochet, and the next stitch, you wrap around, go down through, wrap around. You have 3 on the hook, wrap around and go through all 3. And so the difference between a half double crochet and a double crochet is, on a double crochet, a regular double crochet, you would wrap around, go through 2, wrap around, go through 2. But on a half double crochet, you just wrap around and go through all 3 on the hook. Okay, so now you're just going to repeat that. It's just that simple. You're going to do a slip stitch. Whoop, no, slip stitch you don't slip stitch you don't wrap around. You just bring it through and then go through like that, and then go in, wrap around, do the double crochet, and that's it. You just do your slip stitch, half double crochet, slip stitch, half double crochet all the way across, and then turn it and you repeat. It is that simple. So I'm going to pause here and then go forward after I do a few rows. Okay, so I've completed my first row and I ended on a slip stitch. So start with a slip stitch, end on the slip stitch, and then you're just going to add a stitch before you turn your work, and then you will start with a slip stitch. It's kind of hard to see. In that first stitch, you'll do a slip stitch. So probably my needle may be a little bit too big working through this. May use, this is a 5, you could use a 4.5. I prefer the bigger needles. I like the ones with the handles. So just doing a slip stitch to start with, okay, and then a half double crochet. So this is row 2. Yeah, just going across the stitch there, wrap around, go through the 3, and that's just all you do for the next row, for as many rows as you want. Slip stitch, half double crochet. It's just that simple. All the way across. And so this is, I haven't measured it, but this is 71 chains, which basically you're doing a row of 70. I don't know if I can show. Now that is without the border, so I will be adding a border once I get this done. Okay, so it'll be a square. So it's probably about 28 inches, 26 to 28 inches. That's without the border, because you add the border. Now this is kind of a stretchy yarn because it's really soft. At any rate, so I will do a part 2 to this video once I get all the rows done, and then I'll do the border. But this is a basically easy stitch to do. You just do slip stitch and half double crochet for as many rows as you want. You know, you can adjust the length. Just remember, to have that extra one if you do 81 chain or 91 chain, or if you even want to do a little bit smaller, you know. So there you go. Stay tuned for part 2, which I will have this one done, and then I will show how I'm going to do the border and then finish it and what it looks like once it's completed. But I just wanted to share the basic stitches for a very easy baby blanket.